I was only supposed to be gone from Whitelee to else to start to end, and then I would be back home again. I lost track of the time, I was having a ball. You didn't need to worry about me at all, and I was only supposed to be gone from Whitelee. The clock hit a road around.
Hi and welcome to North Harrow Community Library. My name's Julie, I'm one of the trustees, and I'd like to welcome again to our YouTube channel Mr. Tim Wells.
Hello.
An author. Hello, and thank you for travelling from the other side of London.
It's been quite a schlep, but we saw parts of London we've never seen before.
So Tim, it's 2 years almost to the day since we did our last little video for...
Yeah, I think I've been out of bed twice since then, with the COVID and all that.
Okay. Oh dear. And since then, you've been really busy, haven't you?
Yes, I've actually had a new book since then, and writing another at the moment, so yeah.
Wow.
Keeping going.
You're unstoppable.
Well, I stop quite frequently, as we told. So this is set in 1980, and it's a follow-on from this book, which was set in 1979, and they're about a skinhead werewolf. And it's mostly set, well, it's all set pretty much in London, specifically mostly northeast London, where I live. Joe enjoyed the getting ready for a night out as much as the night itself. The flat he lived in had a shower shared by 3 others on his floor. Many of the old Victorian houses in London had been converted this way. Give the serving classes jobs and make them pay. Thoroughly clean and with a towel wrapped around his modesty, he quickly sprinted up the half-dozen dingy stairs and through his door. He'd had the Rankin Joe tune Drunken Master in his head as he'd rubbed and scrubbed. He made for the stereo, and after flipping through a stack of 7s on top of his bookcase, next to his framed Madeline Smith photo, oh Madeline, and found his copy. He hoped it'd be a foreshadow of the coming night. Friday night and out to see a band, have a dance and down a few, kicking off with a solid slice of Joe Gibbs 2 business. He set that to safely spinning and dusted himself with a liberal handful of talc, brute talc at that, savagery. Once confident there was enough to enhance his manliness, he stepped into his underwear. Happy that was snug, he dashed a shake of talc in there too, the last place he'd want to be savoury. He picked up the amulet from the mantelpiece. He'd be wearing it like he'd been told to, but it didn't half itch. Probably just wasn't used to the metal, or maybe the points of the pentacle were catching. This is what he's got to wear for the witches trying to cure him. The single had played through, and looking for a longer groove, Joe selected another Joe Gibbs. This one a disco mix, so it'd run longer and give him more time to do a little dance as he dressed. The mighty Earth and Stone singing Ringcraft, dropping into Dread or Mafia, a weird and wonderful take on the same rhythm from Snuffy and Wally. When reggae went strange, reggae went right. The next and very important move was to select his shirt for the night. He's opened the door of his wardrobe and clocked the button downs, looking at them like Harold Chan does the gangsters hung from meat hooks in the Long Good Friday. All his and all in his power. Knobber on the rail, chinker in the laundry basket. There were gingham checks, window pane, Oxford, Brutus, Ben Sherman, and a couple of Arnold Palmer he was particularly proud of. 10 years before, skinhead had been the fashion, and the old coats, shirts and whistles were there to be had at the second-hand shops and markets. You needed a charter for the bonus schmatter, but something bold could still turn up if you were lucky. Two-tone and mod are all the rage now, and the streets were raging all right, and cheap clothes for the use filled the obvious shops. They were cheap and looked cheap. Joe was Stamford Hill and knew enough Schneiders to have some discernment, and East London enough to know buying quality second-hand was better than new cheap. Many an altered suit looked an absolute rascal, while a cheap one was never more than dreck. Running his hand over the shoulders of the coat-angered shirts, Joe first considered a powder blue gingham check, but then remembered the blue socks that would go with it were in the wash. As every good skinhead knows, shirt, socks, pocket square should accentuate one another. Given that, he went for a short-sleeved white number with an assertive black and yellow window pane check. The collar was three-fingered and rolled seductively. He balanced that with lemon socks, a chocolate tank top, and red Frank Wright loafers. Trousers before bats though, and he looked into the wardrobe. Shirts to the left, Kathy's to the right, and pulled out a crisply creased black pair. They'd balance the black of the window pane and not overshadow the dicky dirt. He moved to the paperback he'd finished that morning from his bed, Peter Cave's Bikers v Suede Ed's Rogue Angels, and laid his outfit on top of his leopard spot duvet, then dressed. Funny, thought Joe, that none of those New English Library aggro pulp writers got the details right. Pulp fiction was nothing new to the lower orders of the city. In his Curiosities of London Life from 1853, Charles Manby Smith himself had noted that London's Sunday markets had all abundance of the blood and murder, ghost and goblin journals, embellished for the most part with melodramatic cuts, where what was wanting in truth of artistic delineation was plentifully made up in energy of action. It would seem that there is a charm in pistols, daggers, bludgeons and deadly weapons of all sorts, with the assaults and assassinations they suggest, that is irresistible to the population of London, no matter how gross the ignorance or stupidity of a writer, so that he have but a deed of blood or violence to unfold, a murder is so delicious a morsel to the palates of a debased multitude that imparts a relish to the most intolerable dullness, and invests imbecility itself with the attributes of genius and talent. Sartorially complete, if a little spiritually empty, Joe took an eyeful of himself in his wardrobe mirror. He wasn't one for a Fonz type, hey, but he thought he looked good. A liberal splash of brute aftershave, and he was good all over.
So that was great, and just before, I'm going to ask you to read some poems, if that's okay.
Fine.
But before you do, I'd like to know what brought you to poetry.
To poetry, well, I was doing poetry as a teen. I was one of the ranting poets, so we were doing poems in between bands, which is mostly sort of like punk bands, reggae bands of early 80s.
So how did you come to be a ranting poet then? What kind of drew you to poetry?
Getting into gigs for free, getting drunk and trying to meet girls.
So as a means to an end then?
Well, failed at all of them apart from getting into gigs, but yeah.
So did you, when you were at school, did you write then? You know, did you kind of, were you one of these kids that stood up in the English class and went, this is my poem?
Not really, no. I mean, I read a lot at school, but I kind of read what I wanted to read rather than what the school wanted us to read. But I think that's true of a lot of people, which is why it's a good thing that there's libraries so you can go and find your own stuff.
Absolutely. We do love the library.
Yeah.
So when you started on the sort of ranting scene,
Yeah.
what was that kind of, what am I trying to say here? That kind of peer feedback, I guess, you know, sort of between you all. Did you kind of critique each other's work? Did you,
Very
you know
much
what I
so.
mean? Like, yeah, no, exactly. Was it like, did someone come up and go, oh, well, that was a bit, I'm going to say rubbish for the,
poetry.
for the YouTube audience?
Poetry's always written with a bloody dagger. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of that. But I did like the immediacy of it. I mean, I think that's one thing we kind of lost with poetry now, is the ranting poetry. It was very topical. We kind of picked up on news in a way that DJs and reggae sound systems did as well, and still do. And I liked that a poem might have a shelf life of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I actually did like that. Some of them lasted, some of them didn't. But the immediacy I really liked, and just picking up on stuff and running with it and having a bit of fun.
We kind of have social media for that now, don't we? So you can look at a tweet when it comes up on your memories, for example, on your Facebook post and go, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah, ranting poetry replaced by memes.
Yeah.
It's someone's college dissertation, isn't it?
Definitely. So that's fantastic. And you're actually, going back to the prolificness, have had quite a lot of poetry published, haven't you, before you turned to writing books?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, I've quite a lot of stuff published and been around long enough. I outlived a lot of the others.
Yeah.
Tempting fate now.
You'll be fine. You'll be here for years yet. Right, so you did an event, didn't you, recently?
Did. So let me find that.
In praise and honour of Pie Mash.
Yeah, let me find that. It's in here somewhere. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so this poem's pretty much a true story. It takes place in Exmouth Market, where there used to be a pie and mash shop, but thanks to gentrification and improvement, now there isn't. A university education. The poshos behind me in the pie and mash queue are puzzled. Firstly, that there's a queue. Secondly, that the disappearing London they'd set out to discover is thriving. At the counter, I order large pie and mash, easy. One perfect pie, mash smooth to the side of the plate and smothered with liquor. It fair sets a fella. There is some disquiet after me, however. Adding some toit to his hoity voice, the chap behind declares, "I can't seem to find a menu." The old girl serving stabs a wooden spoon into the steaming vat of mash, stares at him blankly and states, "This is a pie and mash shop, dear." The rest of us punters burst into laughter. A toff fumbles for change. So Julie, this is one you asked me about, and this is a poem about Mary Millington, who was an actress of sorts in late 70s, will probably be most familiar to men of my age. The column inches. It's not the screwing, it's the being screwed. Never being yourself, always being what they want you to be, even when you don't know what that is. The cold starts, the broken heart splashed across acres of gloss, and all the while remembering to smile.
I think it's reflective of any person, particularly female, in the public eye, that they will get those, you know, gossip columns and you know, kind of pretty torn apart by the
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely an extreme example of that. And
yeah.
Yeah, she definitely had those forces on her. Yeah.
But they just won't leave people alone.
Oh,
but you don't have that problem, do you?
I just don't have the body for it.
But maybe you could read that poem about being Tim Wells, because that kind of
All right.
segues quite nicely
If I
into
can-
like, you don't have that problem.
So this poem is about my life and non-life as a poet, and it's called "It Must Be Boring Being Tim Wells." The girls, the parties, he's a celebrity, and he got out of there. The Guardian Review interviewed his dad and couldn't find an ex with a bad thing to say. Seems everything he writes turns into an Arts Council grant. Oh, dread prophet, he walks with apples and snakes and has the ear of the Poetry Society. The cliterati throng his readings, there's not a dry seat in the house. As to Blake, he is broke because he heels wear down, strolling from book launch to private view to premiere. He'd write even more if only Scarlett Johansson would get off the phone. He's in everybody's mouth, held in every hand. Even when a girl says no, there's a poem about it. Putting the P into poetry. If he left a cake out, it would not rain. Pam Ayres ate his words, how stiff is my vile sense. Every high brassiered low top singer is going to sing a song, and superstar DJs admit they were wrong. In the film of the same name, he'll be played by Ray Winston, because who's the daddy now? If I was Tim Wells, I wouldn't have to waste my time on pish like this. This is a poem, and it's from this book. Again, it's a few years old, and this one is called "The Middle Class in the Laundrette as Pandas at the Zoo." At first, they're wide-eyed and insufferably cute. The light is more than expected, surroundings unfamiliar. They tread gingerly, touch machines and wash baskets gently. The soap powder box might as well be an ice block containing pear chunks. Then working out where the coins go will be shared on YouTube by Japanese girls for months. Their precious middle-class faces of awe, memed, t-shirted and tea-toweled. They actually read washing instructions on labels, use fabric softener and turn up without the correct coins. Oh, the joy of the what to do till the Turkish lady sorts some change and explains a service wash. I can't afford the zoo these days, but I surely rinse my smalls.
Well, thank you very much, Tim Wells.
Thanks for having me.
For coming to visit us.
It's been lovely.
And yeah, just to say, follow us on the socials, and I'll see you all soon.
I said I was coming home. Well, I said I was coming home. Well, I said I was coming home.